Howdy do, buckaroos. Hi guys, sorry I'm not there today. I'm just going to do a recap of what you guys do for your slab. I know today's your first day, don't worry. Just focus on doing your best, not forgetting to score, slip, and blend. If you need one more class period after today, you can, but you're only going to have 2 classes to construct. So you already have your design. This is my design. It's supposed to be like the universe with planets and stuff. Put A where I'm going to add the clay, R where I'm going to remove it, and L where I'm going to leave it. Some of the other marks and dashes are actually going to be marks that I scrape into the clay. So that doesn't need an R, A, or L. So what I'm going to do is first I have a chunk of clay. I'm going to put 3 slats on the left, 3 slats of wood on the right. As we mentioned last time, this is to make sure that you don't accidentally roll it too thin, and if you make a mistake, this will help you to kind of refresh your clay without trapping air if you need to roll it a bit thinner. All right, so I got it here. I'm actually gonna, so say for instance I roll it like this, yes, and I start to make some designs and I'm like, oh, that's totally not what I want. So you can blend it out if the lines are very shallow. If they're too deep, it will trap air. So the cool thing about having 3 is if I make a mistake, I can leave it as 2, make sure the rolling pin is balanced on it, and now I've got a nice new clean slab of clay that still isn't too thin. Okay, so this is going to be my clay that I work with. Gonna have my design handy, so you should have your sketchbooks.
Do is first I'm gonna very lightly, we do have some stencils if you need to cut out the shape, but I'm gonna very lightly do the outline of the actual tile. The reason for that is if I do it too deep, let's do it over here. If I do it too deep and I'm like, oh, I don't want that, and then I do like that, what do you think I did? Trap air. So doing it very lightly just to get a rough idea of where I want it.
Use the needle to cut out the final shape of the tile that I'm happy with. And when you cut out with the needle, you hold it straight up and down. Notice I'm not holding it aside, holding it straight up and down. If you hold it at a side, I'll show you what happens. If I'm holding it at the side here, it'll cut it at a weird angle, and sometimes it means that the tile actually ends up getting too thin because people cut out the clay that's supporting the tile. Okay, so now I've got some chunks of clay here, as well as some other clay available. Usually after I roll it out, I like to flip sides. The reason for that is you notice here it's wet, and it is possible for clay to get kind of stuck to your boards. I'm sure you've noticed that. So usually at this point I might gently, because we're not trying to kick dust in the air, I might gently flip the board over. Or at least, even if I don't flip it over, I might shift it to another spot. I have some clay to add my pieces that I wanted to add. If it's not tall, if it's not big enough, the clay's not big enough, ask the teacher or an assistant to help you. So I'm going to kind of make Earth. This is going to be Earth, the moon, some stars, some stuff, you know, all those technical things. I can kind of lay it out actually before I make a final attachment. Okay, Earth is way bigger than the moon. That moon is too big. See, look, I pinched some off, and now I can kind of flatten out the bottom to make sure it'll be even and not trap air on there. So far, these are the 2 things that I'm gonna add. And then the rest of it I wanted to have as removing. So I'm going to score the clay on both pieces. Scoring means just really like scratch. I'm not going deep. That traps air and it makes it weak. I'm just barely like, think of it like Tickle Me Elmo, going hee, just a little bit on the surface on both clay pieces. And I think I mentioned the reason that we score is to give traction. It gives grip for the clay pieces to stick to each other. Basically, I don't just smooth this over the lines. I'm kind of rolling my finger to make sure the clays get into, the slip gets into there. Then I put some slip onto here. Usually if I move it a few times, that I can tell if there's air bubbles coming out. Then I push it down, nice and firm. And then I can even use one of the clay tools to kind of smooth around it. But now I can start to add like details and textures. There's different kinds of tools. You guys are lucky because you have your stamps done. I was going to remove some of those, but as I'm working, I can always make some adjustments. I do want to have some like stars, and you'll notice that as you're working with the clay, especially if you're drawing into it, you're not just drawing, you're moving clay around. So what happens is you get these little things called burrs. This is just little bits of clay that you want to move out of the way. Bits of clay, move out of the way. That's a horrible star. And because it's not deep, I can smooth it out. Retexturize. Now I'm starting to add some of the details. You'll notice that as I work, it won't look exactly like my original design in my sketchbook, but that sketchbook plan helps me as I work. And then as I'm working with the tools and with the clay, I may make some adjustments. Obviously, this is a stop motion. I'm not really working that fast. I'm using different tools to get textures, cleaning up, re-adding texture, carving. I can also make small pieces of clay to add. For the small stars that I'm just adding, I don't need to score, but I do add slip and then smooth out around them. Here's the final piece. I made sure to think about what do I want the edge of it to look like. I didn't just leave it smushed. I used one of the tools to make a kind of a serrated edge, and that's because it's a sculpture. All parts of it should be seen, including the edge. Okay guys, happy making, and don't forget, don't trap air.